Hello there, folks, and welcome to another edition of
This is just in.
First up in the news, new developments in our story following the homewrecker Ethan Ralph and his teenage girlfriend Faith. After learning that Ethan Ralph enticed the barely legal teenage fangirl Faith to run away from home and live in his mother's crack shack, we've been following this real-life white trash soap opera. Just 2 weeks ago, it seemed that we had reached the end of this saga when Faith decided to go home and requested that her parents fly across the country to save her from the clutches of the overweight e-celeb Ethan Ralph. The internet rejoiced as it seemed the story had a happy ending. But after her parents arrived on the East Coast and they began to unravel the myriad of lies that Faith had been telling to everyone involved, she became defensive and threatened suicide. Her parents checked her into a hospital due to these threats of self-harm. While Faith was in the hospital, Ethan Ralph leaked a video of himself and Faith having sex. And after just a few days of treatment in the hospital, Ethan Ralph scooped up Faith from the hospital and brought her back to his palatial shack of crack before her parents could intervene. And Faith's parents, Mr. and Mrs. Vickers, were forced to return home without their daughter. Well, since Faith's been back with Ralph, things are getting pretty spicy. The parents blame Ethan Ralph for corrupting their daughter, and they've been doing everything they can to expose what they know about the obese, alcoholic, convicted felon that has seduced their teenage daughter and convinced her to abandon her family. And since they've lost all contact with their daughter, Faith's parents, Mr. and Mrs. Vickers, have taken to the internet to try and expose everything they are discovering about this twisted situation. They're furious with Ethan Ralph and his quest to break their family apart by luring their mentally ill daughter away from their reach and into his control. Mr. and Mrs. Vickers recently sat down for an interview with YouTube personality Godwinson to discuss the current situation. Most of what they talked about had already been covered in Mr. Vickers' timeline he posted on aborttheretort.com. But here's just a small piece of the interview that covers some of the more recent revelations.
So you've clarified that step one is just call me. Call me and we can have a conversation. What if she's too afraid to just call you? What are your other sort of offerings that she can accept to sort of rebuild whatever's going to come before Christmas?
Well, see, part of the problem right now is I don't think the Gunt has even enough money to get her a new cell phone. And so everything I send has to go through him.
Yeah.
And so
he'll cut off all her accesses to the outside world and all of her support. So he's got full dominance over her. That's what he'll do.
And he apparently there's some agreement between the two of them. She won't even go online for the next year.
I don't think there's.
So this is the agreement, the same agreement that I had heard from sources close to Nora that he had.
Oh, okay.
Apparently, Nora had said him and her had, apparently money was involved. That he wouldn't go on she wouldn't be allowed to go online. So he wants her silence, right? He wants essentially like an NDA sort of thing, so he can protect his online reputation. What about her online reputation? What about him leaking her form all over the internet? Like, the man is a disgrace.
Yeah, I mean, he's a complete waste of humanity. But I think one of the most telling things was in the last text he sent me, which was, because remember, this is going to get dirty, and I'm already known as a dirty scumbag, and I'm so dirty that you can't do anything to humiliate or embarrass me or anything else. So just so you know, you're going to lose because basically I'm a piece of shit.
What a nice man. Yeah. What a kind soul. What a saint. Saint Ethan Ralph. Mr. Vickers, when your wife is reading you those texts, is your blood not boiling?
My blood has been from a simmer to a boil for the last couple of months, but that certainly raises it. Yeah, it's one of those, I got to kind of step away from the situation. Really, anytime you don't hear from me for several days on Twitter, it's because I've stepped away from the situation, because I don't want to do what the Gunt does, which is just respond right away and just be stupid. But yeah, no, it pisses me off to no end.
Well, his first line in that text, so that was the last line. The first line was, believe it or not, I'm sympathetic to you. I don't know if the fucking idiot knows what sympathetic means.
Yeah, what does he mean when he says, I am sympathetic to you? So what does he recognize that he is a controlling predator that's flown your daughter out and kept her prisoner? Like, does he recognize that? Is that why he's sympathetic?
No, he just said, hey, all he said after that was, I can't even imagine what's going on your end. So I don't know if it's that he doesn't allow himself to think about it. He doesn't have to care about it, or
No, well, I mean,
Just
even in the
you know,
even in the original Rad Roberts emails, and then post Rad Roberts, where he revealed himself after I revealed him, he kept saying, "No, believe it or not, I do see things from your side." Like, no, you don't, because then you'd be coming out here, you'd be struggling. If you were seeing things from my perspective, Ethan Ralph, you would know what it's like to struggle every day to not buy a plane ticket and go shoot you in the face. Now, I'm not making a threat, so we're clear. But don't think it's not a
I will also clarify
that
was not a threat at all.
But don't think it's not a recurring fantasy running through the Vickers' head.
My question is, if we're trying to get Faith back by Christmas, she's supposed to call you, but apparently he's controlling her phone and he's not, she's not allowed to communicate with other people. Is there any way you can actually get professionals involved in this so you can have, mediation with your daughter?
We're looking at options.
Those are the options that we're looking at that we're not talking about publicly right now.
Okay, that's absolutely fine, because that's
showing too much of the hand.
Yeah, that's obviously fine. I just want you to know that there's such a wellspring of support on your side, beyond whatever showmanship or on whatever crazy stuff goes on the internet. You just got to recognize that there's a genuine wellspring of emotion that comes when they see the people in the chat, the people that are watching this, when they see two parents that are broken, that have lost their daughter to somebody like Ethan Ralph. I can only imagine the pain you're going through. And there is light at the end of the tunnel. There is hope. There are many ways of being able to help Faith. And if Ethan Ralph is at least, I don't know, if he does have a bit of humanity, then he could perhaps meet you halfway and at least try and get her looked over by mental health professionals in Guntsville, Virginia. If he does that, I mean, that's a little bit of respect he gains, is it not?
It would help. It would really help if I saw that there was some proof that he was actually helping her.
Do you think she's drinking?
Yes, I basically know she is.
So she is under 21, right?
Yep.
Ralph himself is 16 years her senior. He is the one buying this alcohol and I assume supplying it to her, right? Unless
where I know 100% that he is either him or Dick supplied it to her in Southern California.
Do you not think it's a bit crazy that she goes to see Ethan Ralph at Dick Masterson's home? The mansion?
With my money, because she lied about what she was doing.
I've been through her Discord from the point they met to the point she went to LA, and then there's a break. And then from the point she got back to LA from well into August. And I've been through all of that. And first, let me assure you, that was no fun. But second, no. I mean, I absolutely, the Gun and Faith were hooking up, and afterwards, she was hoping at that point she was
pregnant.
Right. So they were hooking up. Dick Masterson's mansion. He'd sort of did they hook up in the mansion? Like, did they stay in a room or?
Yeah, he can't afford a hotel. That's where they stayed.
Right.
And
so I suppose that's always question for Dick Masterson for allowing this, right? I mean, he has to answer some sort of questions for allowing this to happen under his own roof and enabling it.
Yeah, he's going to say she was 18. What do I care?
Yeah,
that's what I keep saying. Everybody keeps saying, "Oh, she's 18." Oh, since she's 18, first of all, as parents, we should just back off and say, "Fuck our daughter. I don't care how sick she is. She can go fuck up her life." I mean, it's like it seems impossible to me that people don't understand that the whole reason that we're seeming so involved in everything is because we love our daughter and want to make sure she's okay. And her age has no fucking bearing on that whatsoever. If she's listening, I want her to hear this and hear this clearly. The worst day of my whole fucking life is the day I walked through that door after I came back. And her little brothers wanted to know where she was.
Yeah, we didn't have the heart to tell the little ones until we got back because we wanted to tell them in person. They had expected her to be coming back the entire time.
Have you explained the whole situation, or have you just said that she's away for a bit?
It depends on the child.
They're 3 to 16.
Yeah, so the 3-year-old doesn't really know what's going on because he's 3. He sees her picture and she goes nuts. She sees her picture and then he goes nuts and, Fei. The 6-year-old understands enough to not like Ethan Ralph, and at least on 2 occasions per week, and he says it kind of cutely, so we don't really jump on it that much, says, is today the day we're going to beat up Ethan Ralph and take all his stuff? And he doesn't. The 12-year, he's almost 12. The 12-year-old, he's the most broken up about it. He was the one fighting with her the most before she ran off, so I think he has a lot of blame. We're certainly going to get the whole family to counseling, sans faith, if we have to, just so everybody can deal with it. The oldest brother is almost 16, and he is reacting how you would expect a 16-year-old boy to react. He's pretty much on the warpath right along with me. I keep him out of it as much as I can.
Yeah, just stop him from loading up a YouTube channel. Stop that.
Well, yeah. So he doesn't do that, but he's. It's funny because he's supportive, and so much of this is it's our form of therapy too. But they're all dealing with it, I think, in their own way. But we don't involve them in the dirt of it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, hopefully it won't be prolonged. Hopefully she will be back by Christmas. I cannot see her not being back by Christmas.
I sadly can.
This is what I'm anticipating, because I know what he's like. I know his history of doing this stuff. I think he'll get her to sit down with him on camera. They'll do a show, a quote-unquote show, where he coerces a sort of weird statement out of her where she says that she's been abused as a child. You know what I mean? By her family as a child.
That's exactly what his threat is to do.
And that's what he will do. That's what he will do.
He phrases it as, it's Faith who wants to do it. I've just been holding her back. Uh-huh.
Yeah, I mean, that's the one thing I can promise you is we haven't said one dishonest thing to you.
No, and there's no need to even question your integrity at this point. We can hear from your own voices that it's a world that I don't want to ever be involved. I never want to be in the nightmare scenario that you are in at the moment. And before we came live, you said that you wanted to be a warning for other parents.
Yes.
That could you elaborate on that, Mr. and Mrs. Vickers?
Yeah, I had said that basically the reason that we are coming so public, there's 2 reasons. First is I can't talk to my daughter directly. This is the best I've got. The second thing, which is very important to me, is I want to be able to warn other parents of how this happened, that it did happen, that there is this culture out there that feeds on these girls. And anything I can do to stop somebody else from going through this nightmare.
My biggest regret is giving her a phone and as much access and leeway to the internet. Now, on the surface, she was always a good kid, and so that's why she had the leash that she had. Now, I don't think, because I've heard some back and forth on this, I don't think it's the access to the internet that caused the problem any more than I think violent video games create school shooters. Difference between causation and correlation. But whatever issue she had was absolutely exacerbated by her connection and influence by this ridiculous world that she's got herself tied up into. And The only thing I would add is if there's any question about what we're doing and why, it's because the more I draw the gun out in his world, the more he has to come into mine. And when he comes into mine, that's going to be bad for him.
And there we go.
Well, the next day, it was time for Ethan Ralph to host his show, The Kill Stream, and he started the show with his usual shameless, smug attitude. Well, the smug didn't last long for Ralph, because Mr. Vickers wasted no time in taking to Twitter to update everyone on his latest developments. He dropped a bombshell that he had just unlocked Faith's cell phone, the same one he had confiscated after Faith threatened to commit suicide and was admitted to the hospital. Mr. Vickers revealed that he was about to review all the communications between his daughter and Ethan Ralph. And just an hour and a half later, Mr. Vickers dropped this foreboding message on Twitter.
I don't even have to say what it is. Gunt, you know damn well what it is. You have 48 hours to convince her to come home before I go to the police.
It still isn't exactly clear what Mr. Vickers discovered in his daughter's cell phone, but it seemed to be something so damning that he was ready to go to the police. I have my own suspicions about what Mr. Vickers discovered, but I'll leave out that speculation to keep us focused on what we do know for sure. And at the same time this message was posted, Ethan Ralph was still live hosting his show, and you could see the wheels begin to spin in Ethan Ralph's head.
It's not true. It's not true. It's not true. It's not true.
Ralph did seem to hold things together for most of his show. He did his best to ignore the messages and try to continue on as if nothing of importance had happened. But at the very end of the show, he cracked, and Ethan Ralph unleashed his pent-up rage by hurling threats at the angry parents of his teenage girlfriend.
You always lose when you fuck with the Ralph! You California losers can never afford it, bitch! Be on the lookout for that statement tomorrow, baby! I just Thanos snapped your happy family, bitch!
Whatever it was that Mr. Vickers discovered on Faith's cell phone, Ethan Ralph seemed to be worried, almost as if he knew something was there, and it was enough to cause him to immediately begin taking defensive measures. It appeared that Ralph had decided to retaliate by releasing a statement the next day. At least that's what he was threatening to do in that last clip I just showed you. However, what ended up happening was that Faith, Ralph's barely legal teenage girlfriend, ended up releasing the statement instead of him. But much of that statement sounded like it was straight from the mind of Ethan Ralph. And in fact, many people think that either Ethan Ralph coached her through the creation of that statement or had outright written the statement for her.
I've tried my best not to respond to the attacks from my father and mother over the past few weeks. My main focus has been on my relationship and my recovery. That will continue to be the case. However, due to their recent unethical and arguably illegal activities, I've decided it was necessary to set the record straight with this statement. I am not mentally ill, as my parents would have you believe. I do have mental health issues, depression, anxiety, PTSD, all things that millions of Americans deal with daily. Last month, in the face of withering abuse and attacks from Kiwi Farms, Godwinson, PPP, and others, I had a breakdown and required hospitalization. My parents, who now talk about how much they care about me, used to regularly ridicule my mental health. And on that day, they didn't even want to take me to the hospital until I forced their hand. The concerned parent routine is just an act. If it wasn't an act, how could my father, Matthew Vickers, justify linking up with the same scumbags who put me in the hospital? He now interacts with Kiwi Farms and considers them friends. He does interviews with Godwinson. These are the people responsible for the sudden decline in my mental health, and my father now calls them friends. That's not the behavior of a concerned parent. It's the behavior of a narcissist. This man has shared my private health history to the entire internet without my consent. He talks about me getting tested for medical ailments, but when I was there, they neglected to take me to get medical care time and time again. Delays, excuses, there was always a reason. When I was in the hospital last month, they called only once, and even then, they didn't leave their number. My father has publicly disowned me on Twitter, shared embarrassing details about my life, and much, much more. My parents, through their reckless behavior, have also likely poisoned a civil proceeding I was in the process of undertaking against my rapist. My dad is the one who encouraged me to do this, and it breaks my heart that he has probably demolished any chance I had to get some sort of attempt at closure on that. He probably doesn't care about this at all, but I wanted to point it out for the record. My parents have also refused to return or arrange for the return for my personal belongings. Even getting my ID from them was like torture. Much of the stuff I bought with my own money earned from working. They still refuse to return it. All of my remaining things are being held hostage by them in a misguided attempt to make my life harder. It's sad and it's petty. They also said that they would respect my privacy, but have, according to them, hacked into my personal accounts and devices. Not only is this unethical, but it's also most likely illegal. I don't know if these messages are altered, although I would not put it past my father. But what I do know is this: I do not consent to the sharing of these messages in public. You access them without my knowledge or consent, and I am telling you publicly to cease and desist. And the big reason they say that they're doing all of this is my boyfriend, Ethan Ralph. My father has always hated Ethan because of how we got together. Now he's using the army of trolls who drove me into the hospital as his weapon against him. I want to state very clearly that Ethan Ralph absolutely did not release revenge porn of me. He had my consent to record the video. We're still together, and we plan to marry soon. I would rather have never talked about this topic publicly, but my father has made that necessary. The fact that my father, and now mother, are doing this breaks my heart. Every step of the way, they have made this situation worse, and they continue to do so. I wish that they would focus on my brothers instead of neglecting them for this insane war against my boyfriend. I don't anticipate putting out any more statements, although we will see if they're needed. I just want to state this clearly and for the record. I do not want to live with my parents ever again. I'm not mentally ill. I'm not stupid. I'm here speaking from the heart. I'm 18 years old and of sound mind, and I will be 19 in just a matter of days. I'm asking my parents, publicly, to leave me alone and to let me live my life as an adult. They have no right to treat me this way, and I won't back down because of their pressure. If they continue, we will have to explore other options, such as a restraining order. Thank you for taking the time to listen. I'm going to go back to focusing on my health and school plans, and I hope that my parents respect my decision.
Faith's father, Mr. Vickers, felt the need to respond to this statement made by his daughter. But due to the fact that she had cut off all contact with her parents except through Ethan Ralph, Mr. Vickers posted his response on his website. He broke down her entire statement line by line and made no secret about the fact that he believed most of it was straight from the mind of Ethan Ralph. So in his response to multiple statements in the video, Mr. Vickers responds to his daughter for some points, and Ethan Ralph for those he thinks are written by Ethan Ralph. And in Mr. Vickers' response, you'll hear him address Ethan Ralph as Gunt repeatedly. Now, I will now play for you Mr. Vickers' response to his daughter's statement with the words of Mr. Vickers read by the YouTube live streamer known as Phantom Organization.
I've tried my best not to respond to the attacks from my father and mother over the past few weeks.
She really did do her best. In fact, she never reached out by any form of communication to even ask us to stop. She has not spoken with us directly since we took her to the hospital. Almost a month ago, to this very day, our only correspondence from her since then was a handwritten letter requesting personal items.
My main focus has been on my relationship and my recovery.
Recovery from what? We have not been advised by her or the Gunt that there has been anything for her to recover from. Has she been injured?
That will continue to be the case. However, due to their recent unethical and arguably illegal activities, I've decided it was necessary to set the record straight with this statement.
We will cover unethical and arguably illegal later, but my offer still stands to the Gunt. If you think I am doing anything illegal, bring charges. Our primary course of actions are being motivated by your unconsented release of a sex tape featuring our daughter. I welcome the opportunity to bring this up in court and have you answer to it. As this video is a primary cause of our grievance with you, and you've done nothing to concretely convince us that the crime was not committed by you yourself, then we must press forward. You see, from our very rational standpoint, you've managed to greatly contribute in the destruction of the young woman you supposedly love because you are a drunken fool. The concept of assumed innocence only applies within the court system. It saves you, for now, from the law, but it does not save you from us. We know that you are guilty. I will state this fact on our supposed unethical or arguably illegal behavior. We have not, in our crusade, told any lies.
I am not mentally ill, as my parents would have you believe. I do have mental health issues, depression, anxiety, PTSD, all things that millions of Americans deal with daily.
Does this sentence even require a response? Is there a difference between mental health issues and mental illness? But I think what the Gunt had intended her to say was that she was not mentally ill in the way that her parents are claiming, almost certainly something in the spectrum of antisocial personality disorders, and that she is doubling down on her claims of depression, anxiety, and PTSD. Assuming that is what the Gunt meant, we will make this quite plain. We have very good reason to suspect that Faith does not suffer from the 3 mental ailments that she claims plague her. Our reasons will be explored in more detail later in our response. We did at one point absolutely believe these claims, but what we know now is painfully much more than we knew then.
Last month, in the face of withering abuse and attacks from Kiwi Farms, Godwinson, PPP, and others, I had a breakdown and required hospitalization.
This is utter and complete nonsense. And one of the reasons how we know this is the Gunt writing. Faith's hospitalization was the result of a confrontation about Mama Vickers and myself uncovering a long list of lies. None of these lies had anything to do with Kiwi Farms, Godwinson, PPP, or others. The lies were to us as much as they were to the Gunt. Feeling backed into a corner, Faith refused to respond or defend her actions. She said that she wanted to hurt herself. She said that she felt like jumping through the window of the hotel. She proclaimed that the only thing that would make her feel better would be to talk to the Gunt. Certainly, we did not facilitate that request. Mrs. V, Mama Vickers, upon Faith's threats of self-harm and claims of suicidal ideations, was the first person to suggest that Faith go to the hospital. Faith never requested it, merely nodded her head when Mama Vickers made the offer.
My parents, who now talk about how much they care about me, used to regularly ridicule my mental health.
Not true. At times, we have certainly questioned the validity of her claims because there seems to be more evidence to the contrary than evidence of any serious mental health issue. There were times that we certainly criticized her actions as being inconsistent with someone who considered themselves mentally ill and carried on with other actions antithetical to recovering from or symptomatically treating such conditions. Additionally, on multiple occasions, her claims of a mental crisis were clearly attempts at emotional hostage-taking in attempt to avoid normal and natural consequences for her misbehavior.
And on that day, they didn't even want to take me to the hospital until I forced their hand.
We have clearly covered this, but again, it was Mama Vickers who suggested a visit to the hospital. Faith merely accepted the ride, and then she signed out against medical advice. After the attending doctor promised her that he would keep her hospitalized until they had together, not with Mama Vickers or myself, formulated a solid action plan to get her help for her mental health, and that the plan must necessarily be better than the option of coming back to California, which she certainly did not want to do. If she supposedly forced our hand, why did she surrender her best opportunity for help?
The concerned parent routine is just an act.
Obviously nonsense. In fact, were it not for our direct, intense, active support for the last 3 months of high school, she definitely would not have graduated.
If it wasn't an act, how could my father, Matthew Vickers, justify linking up with the same scumbags who put me in the hospital? He now interacts with Kiwi Farms and considers them friends. He does interviews with Godwinson.
I have never used the word friend to describe anyone from Kiwi Farms. I have had 0 interactions with Kiwi Farms directly. Some of my early Twitter posts included screen caps, which included many criticisms, which I shortly ceased out of concern for the rest of my family. So far as the interview, singular, with Godwinson, I declined an interview early on with the many people who requested one. Months later, I saw that Godwinson defended Faith and I against a seeming or former Gunt guard, who not only referred to Faith as a degenerate whore, but has said that I should be hanged with other degenerates. Mama Vickers and I offered a written response style interview, but when the timing did not work out, she and I decided that we would go ahead and try to do the interview ourselves. If it started to go sideways or in a direction that we didn't like, we could simply disconnect the call, a stunning concept for anyone who believes they are being bullied remotely. Pre-interview, during interview, and post-interview, Godwinson was nothing but respectful, kind, and professional to both Mama Vickers and myself. Whether that respect and kindness was genuine or not is irrelevant. Whether he will turn on us or not is irrelevant. He allowed us a voice which we previously had not had, and without an ability to contact Faith directly, we thought that it might help her to understand the wake of destruction left in the path at the behest of the Gunt. Ultimately, we opted not to wait for actors and felt it more important for our own voices to be heard, knowing that the more time Faith is with the Gunt, the more danger that she is ultimately in.
These are the people responsible for the sudden decline in my mental health, and my father now calls them friends.
First, we've already covered the cause of the sudden decline in Faith's mental health that led to the hospitalization. Second, Faith, nor any of her family, would have never even been on Kiwi Farm's radar sans her interactions with the Gunt. Third, I have multiple text messages from Faith to myself and her mother in addition to emails from the Gunt, advising us that Kiwi Farm's attacks were nothing to worry about and we should just ignore it and it's no big deal. So which is it, Gunt? Are they responsible for the sudden decline in her mental health, or are they no big deal? Even if Kiwi Farms had anything to do with causing any kind of decline in her mental health, our tip is simple. Stop reading Kiwi Farms. This requires no therapy, no medication, and no physical interactions. Just stop. It is literally action through inaction. Referenced again is the idea that I consider Kiwi Farms friends. I would reinforce that a handful have reached out to us personally and have been much kinder than the Gunt has ever been. Others have been cruel, but I know 0 of them personally, so it is impossible for me to refer to them as friends.
That's not the behavior of a concerned parent. It's the behavior of a narcissist.
Pot calling the kettle black? Gunt? Narcissist? A person who has an excessive interest in or admiration of themselves. Shall we look at my non-existent history of trying to gain and maintain fame against your own? Both Mama Vickers and I long to return to the quiet life. You have made that impossible. That you think this is some kind of party for us proves how ignorant you truly are. This is pain. All of it. You think I make jokes here and there in public because I'm having a good time? That's how I deal with this horror show, and it's not an uncommon way to deal with traumatic experiences. Proceeding through the pain to do what you believe is right for your child. There is no better definition of concerned parent.
This man has shared my private health history to the entire internet without my consent.
This man probably should have rewritten that, Gunt. This is supposed to be in Faith's own words. Private health history? Not hardly. We've shared nothing that we've not been directly involved in, which makes it just as much our history to tell as hers. And when my name is being smeared as a child beater, by my own daughter no less, we can think of nothing more deserving of a swift, clear response. We require no consent from anyone to tell our own side of the story, especially if I've been accused of a crime.
He talks about me getting tested for medical ailments, but when I was there, they neglected to take me to get medical care time and time again. Delays, excuses, there was always a reason.
Poorly written, so I'll have to translate again. I assume by when I was there, she means living with us in California. Aside from her regular appointments with the same pediatrician all her life, we had helped Faith transition from a pediatrician to our primary care physician. She had her first appointment scheduled for August 31st, 2020, to begin her adult medical care. but of course ran off to Guntsville before that and did not attend the appointment as a virtual appointment so far as we know.
When I was in the hospital last month, they called only once, and even then they didn't leave their number.
Which genius in the academic Gestapo? Which genius in the academic Gestapo thought up this little gem? Mama Vickers called several times and left a message for her to call us back. Naturally, we'd assumed that Faith knew our phone numbers as they haven't changed for the better part of 12 years. Mama Vickers' phone has had the same number since before Faith was born. Obviously, the doctors knew our number as they reached out to us multiple times, so Faith had easy access to our phone number had she ever at any point wanted to call us. The doctors told us specifically that Faith refused to call us back and refused to speak with us at all, even refusing the first attempt at a family meeting over the phone with her and the other doctors. I don't want to sound old Joe Biden here, but this assertion is pure malarkey.
My father has publicly disowned me on Twitter, shared embarrassing details about my life, and much, much more.
Aside from the use of much, much more, seeming like there's a bargain sale at Walmart, I disowned Faith, not without warning, because she currently presents herself as a very real danger to her family. I've taken plenty of flack from all angles on the disowning, even my supposed best pals on Kiwi Farms. Not only did I make clear to Faith and the Gunt what my response would be should these courses of actions be carried out, I kept my promise. I believe that it was the right thing to do, and while there can certainly be debate on whether or not making that decision public was the right thing to do, I fail to see what difference it makes. When an adult child leaves the home, they make the decision whether they want to grow the family by choosing a stable, decent partner who gains at least moderate approval from those who know and love that person. But adults are also allowed to make their own decision, say, fuck off family who gave me everything, and go be with whoever the hell they want to be with. This is the difference between growing the family or shrinking the family. The Gunt helped to shrink our family, not grow it. The Gunt has never made any attempt to be a likable person to us, only mocked us and degraded us for questioning the legitimacy of this trash fire that has been their relationship. He acts with the mentality of a criminal, demanding respect when he has done absolutely nothing to earn it. I will not have that toxic influence on my family. However, my use of the term disowned does not have necessary permanence. It only holds so long as Faith continues down her current path of self-destruction.
My parents, through their reckless behavior, have also likely poisoned a civil proceeding I was in the process of undertaking against my rapist. My dad is the one who encouraged me to do this, and it breaks my heart that he has probably demolished any chance I had to get some sort of attempt at closure on that. He probably doesn't care about this at all, but I wanted to point it out for the record.
I absolutely did encourage Faith to seek justice for her alleged traumatic rape. A rape, mind you, that we were not told about until after she fled to Virginia, over 3.5 years later. I do not now, nor will I ever wish any parent to have to question their daughter's rape claim. But I am left with little choice, which is why I now refer to the incident as alleged. Like so many of Faith's claims, this allegation came up when it seemed best to suit her, and it focused my attention away from the Gunt and towards a new menace. The rape allegation came out when I was trying to get Faith to tell the truth, and she had said that she was done with lying. Sadly, the lies that came after would grow exponentially. As we have said before, we've done nothing but tell the truth. If the Gunt believes that the truths we told would not come out during a freaking rape trial, civil or criminal, I'm not sure what to say. By setting herself up to have so many lies so easily discovered when trust is compromised, Faith guaranteed that her allegations would never be taken seriously. I had no part in that. The Gunt releasing revenge porn certainly did have a part in harming her ability to pursue any charges. That is 100% the responsibility of the Gunt.
My parents have also refused to return or arrange for the return for my personal belongings.
In context, why should we have to pay hundreds of dollars in shipping to send all her stuff back to her? Mama Vickers has directly messaged the Gunt that we are keeping her stuff aside.
Even getting my ID from them was like torture.
Our only requirement was that Faith request her ID from us directly. A phone call would have been sufficient because we were not going to just send anything on the request of the Gunt. The Gunt himself said that Faith would refuse to call her mother, and instead demanded that the only form of contact be a handwritten letter asking for a list of items to be sent to her. I sent whatever I could fit into a USPS small flat rate priority box. We did not steal any of her belongings. She abandoned her possessions at the hotel and made no attempts to contact us from the hospital or after she was back with the Gunt. Apparently, picking up the phone is torture.
Much of the stuff I bought with my own money earned from working. They still refuse to return it. All of my remaining things are being held hostage by them in a misguided attempt to make my life harder. It's sad and it's petty.
Asked and answered. If she shows up at the door wanting her stuff, we'll give it to her. But we're not going to aid in her poor decisions by using any of our time or resources to satisfy her demands when she cannot even be bothered to make a phone call. Though it would be fun to dissect how much actual work that she did when she was quote-unquote working at our shop, and now I can see the hundreds of DMs and text that she sent during a workday. Additionally, the vast majority of anything that is hers, she certainly did not pay for with her own money.
They also said that they would respect my privacy, but have, according to them, hacked into my personal accounts and devices. Not only is this unethical, but it's also most likely illegal.
The ethics of the actions depend upon the intent. So far as the legality, the ultimate plan is to turn this information over to the police and the courts anyway. So we'll face the law and judgment at some point, as will the Gunt.
I don't know if these messages are altered, although I would not put it past my father.
Another line by the Gunt. Neither Mama Vickers nor myself have any history of using such dastardly tactics. Why would we submit altered messages, images, data to authorities? Your miscalculation was that we had any intent to share this information publicly in the first place. Our very long history in a trust-based business with no record of defrauding anyone should make this quite clear.
But what I do know is this. I do not consent to the sharing of these messages in public. You access them without my knowledge or consent, and I am telling you publicly to cease and desist.
I will save this matter for authorities to decide, but I will report all the crimes that I have discovered and any additional that I'm sure will come to light.
And the big reason they say that they're doing all of this is my boyfriend, Ethan Ralph. My father has always hated Ethan because of how we got together.
How they got together has little to do with my hatred for Ethan Ralph. Rather than go into another litany of perfectly acceptable reasons why I hate him, I stand by the revenge porn that he released being reason enough for any father to hate a man, or really any man to hate another. And for my rage, Mama Vickers' position as a woman, much more brutal than mine.
Now he's using the army of trolls who drove me into the hospital as his weapon against him.
Another Gunt line. Mama Vickers and I are our own weapons. We use the tools available to us.
I want to state very clearly that Ethan Ralph absolutely did not release revenge porn of me.
Nice, Gunt. Faith was isolated in a hospital without technology when everyone watched you do it. She's either lying for you, guarding for you, has no concept of how technology works, or doesn't care. But she has no basis to make a declarative statement such as this line that you have written for her.
He had my consent to record the video. We're still together, and we plan to marry soon.
Mrs. Gunt, that's rich. This is horrifying, but completely expected.
I would rather have never talked about this topic publicly, but my father has made that necessary.
We pushed the Gunt into a corner, and he weaponized a girl against her parents. It was never necessary. It changes nothing. It does nothing more than deflect from his abhorrent, degenerate behavior at the expense of the girl he supposedly loves.
The fact that my father and now mother are doing this breaks my heart. Every step of the way, they have made this situation worse, and they continue to do so.
Ironic, since all we've done is point out the reality of the situation. Again, we've told no lies, and everyone is welcome to step out and point to anything that we've said being untrue. Just have open arms to accept your ass when it is handed to you. Made the situation worse? Like when we flew across the country on your request to rescue you from your hero on promises of your return. Then to spend that money, which had been set aside for a family vacation, and later come home empty-handed, broken-hearted, and burdened with the grim task of breaking two small boys' heart. Is that how we have made things worse?
I wish that they would focus on my brothers instead of neglecting them for this insane war against my boyfriend.
This line here is so Guntguard that my sides are splitting, because the only idiots who have made these laughable comments are his people. Let me break down some very simple math for everyone. Most two-parent households these days, especially in the miserable California, require each parent to work a full-time job. That is 8 hours per day, 5 days per week, 40 to 50 hours per week, throwing in lunch breaks and commute time, away from their children per parent. Our situation is unique. We own our own business. We have employees. Our school-aged children are homeschooled. Mrs. V and I, Mama Vickers and I, usually do most of our work from home, and employees run our store most of the time. Our single regular day at the shop is on Saturday. Sometimes the kids come with us, sometimes they don't. The point is, Mama Vickers and I spend less than 10 hours a week on our crusade, meaning that the remaining children still get much more attention than the average child in a household with two working parents. The idea that any of them are getting neglected is so insanely stupid and presumptuous that I know Faith didn't write it because she already knows all of this. It's also a classic Guntguard argument. The good thing about the Guntguard and the Gunt himself, low intelligence.
I don't anticipate putting out any more statements, although we will see if they're needed.
There's that we again, thus confirming the Gunt's role in this statement. I can make 100% promise that the more we go after the Gunt, the more he will deflect and hide behind Faith, trying to pretend we're going after her instead of going after him. We've admittedly never liked the Gunt, for we've had no good reason to like him and every reason to despise him, but even I didn't expect this quivering mass of false bravado to cower behind his barely legal paramour while she tried to block for his degeneracy with false statements that he obviously wrote for her.
I just want to state this clearly and for the record. I do not want to live with my parents ever again.
It seems like this is a thread that we keep circling around to for no good reason. When we say Faith come home, we definitely don't mean our home. You need a lot of help before you'll be able to interact with your brothers again, but will still you. There seems to be this selective amnesia that you were only weeks from moving out before you were lured away by the Gunt. I don't know if you can still call it grooming if they're 18, but I've read the messages, and let me tell everyone, if that wasn't grooming, I don't know what is. Just because she's a legal adult doesn't mean that she wasn't being manipulated. Sometimes, things aren't a matter of legal versus illegal. They're a simple matter of right versus wrong.
I'm not mentally ill.
By your own admission, you are. But not in the way that you think that you are. This is why we are so desperate to get you help.
I'm not stupid.
Then you shouldn't say stuff like,
I'm here speaking from the heart.
Speak from the brain. The heart tells you lies.
I'm 18 years old and of sound mind, and I will be 19 in just a matter of days.
Well, that's definite proof that you're making the right decisions without any explanation or justifications for actions and decision-making that clearly identify an unsound mind, you simply state that you are of sound mind and then back it up by explaining that you'll be 19 in just a matter of days. But it won't change the maturity difference and radically different life experience between you and the Gunt, nor will it erase the unbelievably toxic foundation from which your relationship has been built upon.
I'm asking my parents, publicly, to leave me alone and to let me live my life as an adult.
Seems like a broken record here, but Ralph is the target, not Faith.
They have no right to treat me this way, and I won't back down because of their pressure.
Once more, it's always about what everyone else has done to them, but not about what they have done to everyone else. Zero culpability equals zero adulthood. This is how a child thinks, which means it could have been written by either Faith or the Gunt. They have failed at every turn to take any responsibility for their immoral, unethical, cruel, and at times illegal behavior.
If they continue, we will have to explore other options, such as a restraining order.
Please do. Faith must be too young to remember our own filed restraining orders 10 years ago, to remember that testimony from TRO hearings are taken under oath and can be used in future legal cases. Not only were we planning for an eventual TRO, though I seriously doubt that it will stick. After all, we're not communicating directly with either of them anymore, and the Gunt has me blocked on Twitter. Why he keeps reading my tweets via other accounts despite how much our jabs clearly upset him, I'll never know. In a public forum, I'm pretty sure that we can say whatever we want as long as it is true, or we have reasonable cause to believe that it is true. Or you can make the assumption that we haven't spoken with any of our attorneys. Yeah, that's the ticket.
Thank you for taking the time to listen. I'm going to go back to focusing on my health and school plans, and I hope that my parents respect my decision.
I'd love to know what Faith's plans are to focus on her health and school. And no, we will never respect decisions that are not worthy of respect. Any parent that would respect your decision needs to have their head examined. At best, we are forced to accept your decision because we have no power to change it. But what's more important? There are certain immature, ultimately stupid actions and behavior one expects out of an immature young girl. It is the decision and actions of the Gunt that we find most deplorable. We must make it clear again. We were the same age as the Gunt only 9 years ago, and when we judge him against how we were at that point in our lives, which was a little different than our lives now, but for two additional children. Ultimately, time will slay this beast no matter what. Enjoy getting married at the justice of the peace. We would have given our only girl a hell of a wedding had she only picked an acceptable man. It would have been nice to walk my only daughter down the aisle and give her away to a gentleman instead of watching her get taken away by a guntleman. Even living across the country, it would have been nice to have a son-in-law who I could look at as another son, instead of a man who barely my junior, who has zero accomplishments under his belt, other than being able to bilk some lemons from radicals whose views he doesn't even share or agree with.
Do you enjoy these videos? Do you want more? This just in? Well, help us grow. Tell your uncaring family, tweet it out to your loser friends, think about me while making love to your spouse. How's about a thumbs up? Maybe check out the Patreon and tip your entertainer. The more feedback these videos get, the more videos I'll make. Your mission, should you choose to accept it, is to spread the word and tell the world about... This is just in.